The stars had always seemed peaceful to Park. He remembered being a child lying on his grandmother's roof, counting the lights in the sky. Now he stood on the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, and those same stars held monsters. The message played again on the main screen. The creature speaking was beautiful in a terrible way. Its body was made of living crystal, tall and sharp, glowing with inner light. The High Archon had ruled his people for 3,000 years. To him, humanity was nothing more than insects that had learned to build ships. You have 30 rotations to surrender the colonies of 442b7 and New Jakarta, the Archon said. His voice was like glass scraping stone. Refuse, and we will correct your species. This is not negotiation. This is notice. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Lieutenant broke the quiet first. She was young, barely 26, but her eyes were old. She had studied war since she could read. Sir, their fleet strength in this sector is approximately 300 warships. We have 47. Nodded slowly. He had known this day would come. Humanity had spread across 17 star systems in 300 years. They had met other species, traded with some, avoided others. But the Dominion had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had crushed 100 civilizations. They did not negotiate. They did not compromise. They simply took what they wanted. "Get me Ambassador," said. The screen flickered and appeared. She was aboard the diplomatic station near space, her face tired but determined. She had spent 6 months trying to build bridges with the crystal beings. 6 months of being ignored, insulted, and dismissed. "Captain Park," she said, "I assume you received their message." "I did. What happened in there?" His jaw tightened. "I requested a meeting with the High Archon. I brought gifts. I brought proposals for trade, cultural exchange, shared research. I spoke for 2 hours about humanity's desire for peace." "And—" He laughed, not with humor, with contempt. She paused and could see the anger she was holding back. "He said that we were brief creatures playing at civilization. He said that in 1,000 years no one would remember we existed. Then he had his guards escort me out like I was a stray animal." Felt something cold settle in his chest. He had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that diplomacy might work, that they might see reason. But creatures who had lived for thousands of years did not see brief lives as valuable. To them, humanity was already dead. They just had not stopped moving yet. "Return to Earth, Ambassador," he said. "Tell the Council what happened. Tell them everything." Nodded. "What will you do?" "My job." The next 3 days passed in tense preparation. The Defiance and its small fleet took position near 442b. The colony world was humanity's breadbasket, home to 8 million people and vast agricultural stations that fed a dozen other worlds. Losing it would mean starvation for millions more. Walked the corridors of his ship talking to his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something else, something harder. These were not soldiers who expected to live forever. They were humans. They knew about death. They had carried it in their bones since their ancestors first picked up stones and faced predators on the African plains. On the 4th day, the came. Stood on the bridge as the sensor officer called out contacts. 10 ships, then 50, then 100. The numbers kept climbing until the display was filled with red markers. 312 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and arranged themselves in perfect formation. They moved like a single organism, beautiful and deadly. "They are hailing us, Captain," the communications officer said. "Put it through." The High Archon appeared again. Behind him could see the crystalline interior of his flagship, the Eternal Radiance. Other officers stood at stations, their bodies catching light and scattering it into rainbows. "Human Commander said, you have positioned your vessels in our path. This is unwise. Remove them and we will permit you to leave before the correction begins." Looked at the alien for a long moment. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived the Sol collapse when the old world fell apart. He thought about his father, who had died building the first colony ships. He thought about every human who had ever faced impossible odds and refused to run. "No," he said. The Archon's crystalline face showed something that might have been surprise. "You cannot win this battle. Your mathematics must tell you this." "They do." "Then why do you stay?" Smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "Because you need to understand something about us. We do not surrender our people, we do not abandon our worlds, and we do not care about your mathematics." He cut the transmission, looked at him with wide eyes. "Captain, they will destroy us." "Maybe," said. He sat down in his command chair and gripped the armrests. "But they will remember this day. They will remember that 47 ships stood against 300, and they will wonder what kind of species does that." The fleet began to move forward. "Opened a channel to all ships. This is Captain Park to all UNSC vessels. Today we show the galaxy what humanity is made of, not because we will win, but because our children will know we did not kneel. All ships, prepare for combat." The stars no longer seemed peaceful, but Park was not afraid. He was angry, and angry humans had always been dangerous things. The first weapons fired, and the war began. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Admiral Shin watched the battle unfold on screens that covered every wall. She was 73 years old, her hair white as snow, her back bent from decades of service. But her mind was sharp as a blade, and her eyes missed nothing. "The Defiance has lost forward shields," an officer reported. "3 of our destroyers are gone." Nodded slowly. She had expected losses. What she had not expected was what happened next. On the screen, a small civilian cargo ship accelerated toward the formation. It was the Morning Star, a grain hauler that had been evacuating colonists. But there were no colonists aboard now. The crew had volunteered to stay behind. As the warships turned their weapons toward it, the Morning Star exploded. Not a normal explosion, a nuclear explosion. The blast consumed 4 cruisers instantly. 3 more were crippled, their crystal hulls cracked and dark. "Confirmed kills," the officer said, his voice shaking. 7 enemy vessels destroyed. Across the galaxy, beings watched in confusion. Civilian ships did not carry nuclear weapons. Civilian ships did not fly suicide missions. This was not how war worked. But humanity had never fought war the way others did. Admiral turned to face her commanders. They were young, most of them, born in the peaceful years when humanity had believed it might escape its violent history. She needed them to understand what was coming. "Let me tell you about our species," she said. Her voice was soft but carried across the room. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Ice ages, predators, disease. We survived by being clever and cruel. We killed the mammoths. We killed the tigers. We killed each other over and over for 100,000 years." She walked to a display showing human history. Images flickered past. Soldiers in muddy trenches. Cities burning under atomic fire. Guerrilla fighters in jungles. Suicide bombers in crowded markets. "They have fought wars for 12,000 years," continued. "But they fight like nobles. They fight with rules. They fight to show power, to demonstrate superiority. When they lose a battle, they retreat and negotiate." She turned back to her commanders. "We do not fight like that. When we are cornered, when our families are threatened, when extinction is the alternative, we become something else. We become animals. We become monsters. There is no tactic too desperate, no sacrifice too terrible, no method too cruel." A young commander raised his hand. "Admiral, what are you ordering us to do?" Smiled, and it was the smile of a grandmother who had seen too much. "I am ordering you to win, by any means necessary." On 442B, Sergeant received his orders. He was a big man, quiet and patient, with hands that had killed and hands that had held his newborn daughter. His unit was called the Forgotten, because officially they did not exist. "We are going behind enemy lines," he told his soldiers. 20 men and women, all volunteers, all knowing they would probably never come home. "Our mission is simple: make them afraid." They had landed occupation forces on the colony. Crystalline soldiers, 8 feet tall, nearly impossible to kill with normal weapons. They set up command posts. They rounded up civilians. They expected submission as they had received from 100 other conquered species. They did not expect. His team moved through the ruins of a farming town at night. They did not sleep as humans did, but they had rest cycles. During these cycles, their senses were dulled. The first officer died without a sound, had learned exactly where to place the explosive charge, right at the joint where the crystal being's head met its body. The blast shattered it into 1,000 pieces. By morning, 11 officers were dead. No human bodies were found. No evidence was left behind. The soldiers searched the area in growing panic. Their commanders told them this was impossible. The primitive humans could not have done this. But was just beginning. Back in space, the battle for 442b ended. Humanity lost 31 ships, the lost 89. High Archon stood on his bridge, staring at the casualty reports. In 300 years of conquest, the Dominion had never lost more than 20 ships in a single engagement. They had just lost 89 to a species they considered insects. "How?" he asked. His voice was quiet, confused. They had no chance of victory. The mathematics were clear. His second officer, a younger named, stood nearby. "They did not fight to win, High Archon. They fought to hurt us. Every ship they lost, they made sure to take 2 of ours with them. Their crews did not retreat when damaged. They accelerated and rammed our vessels." "That is not logical." "No, High Archon, it is not." Looked out at the stars. For the first time in 2,000 years, he felt something unfamiliar, a cold sensation in his crystal core. He did not recognize it at first. It was fear. On the surface of 442b, watched the sun rise over burning fields. Beside him, his radio crackled with reports. More officers dead. Supply lines sabotaged. Communication towers destroyed. A young soldier named O sat next to him, writing a letter on paper. Actual paper, because they could intercept digital messages. "Who are you writing to?" asked. "My mother, she is on Earth. She will not receive it for months." Smiled sadly. "I know, but I want her to know what we did here. I want her to know we did not give up." Nodded, he understood. This was why humanity was different. Not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they remembered. They wrote letters. They told stories. They passed down their pain and their courage to the next generation. The thought they understood war, but war for them was a game with rules. For humanity, war was survival, and survivors did whatever was necessary. In the distance, ships began another assault on the human positions. Stood up, checked his weapon, and prepared to teach them another lesson. The education was just beginning. 6 months into the occupation, they controlled every city on 442b. They had superior numbers, superior weapons, and superior technology. By every measure, they had won. But victory felt nothing like they expected. Dr. Han had been a before the war. She had studied alien life, dreaming of peaceful contact with other species. Now she led 3,000 resistance fighters from tunnels beneath the agricultural domes. "Report," she said to her scouts. A young woman named stepped forward. She was covered in dirt, her face thin from months of short rations. "They have moved their command center to the old university. Heavy guard presence, approximately 200 soldiers." Studied the map on her tablet. The university had been her workplace once. She had taught students there, laughed with colleagues, built a life. They had turned it into a fortress. "What about the supply convoy?" she asked. "Arriving tomorrow at dawn, 12 transport vehicles, light escort." Smiled, it was not a pleasant smile. Then tomorrow we remind them that they have not won anything. They did not understand resistance. In their 12,000 years of conquest, no species had ever continued fighting after military defeat. Why would they? They were clearly superior. Resistance was illogical. Resistance was pointless. But humans did not measure victory in logic. They measured it in blood. The attack on the supply convoy was brutal and efficient. Explosive devices buried in the road. Snipers hidden in collapsed buildings. Fighters who struck fast and vanished into tunnels before they could respond. When it was over, all 12 transport vehicles were burning. 40 soldiers were dead. The resistance lost 7 fighters. More importantly, those supplies would never reach the occupation forces. Food, weapons, medical equipment, all gone. In orbit above the planet, High Archon received the report. His crystalline hands gripped the armrest of his throne until cracks appeared in the material. "Find them," he ordered. "Find these resistance fighters and destroy them." His officers tried. They searched every building, every tunnel, every cave. They interrogated civilians who knew nothing. They destroyed entire towns suspected of harboring fighters. It did not help. If anything, it made things worse. Every destroyed town created more resistance fighters. Every dead civilian had family members who joined the cause. They were fighting an enemy that grew stronger with every attack. Meanwhile, Captain Park had not been idle. The Defiance had survived the first battle barely. Half the ship was damaged. A third of the crew was dead or wounded. But Park had kept fighting, leading hit-and-run attacks on supply lines. Now he sat in his damaged command chair, studying a message from Admiral Shin. The old woman's face filled the screen, her expression grave. "Operation Ember is approved," she said. "You know what this means." Park nodded slowly. "We are going to attack there. We are going to attack there with everything we have left. This is not a raid, Captain. This is a final strike. If it fails, humanity is finished." Park looked around his bridge. Lieutenant sat at her station, her fingers flying over controls as she ran simulations. Other officers worked at their posts, exhausted but determined. "What are our odds?" he asked. Admiral Shin was quiet for a moment. "Does it matter?" "No, I suppose it does not. The fleet will gather at the dark side of Neptune in 3 weeks. Bring everyone who can still fight." The screen went dark. Park sat alone with his thoughts. Lieutenant approached him carefully. "Captain, what did command say?" "We are going on the offensive." Her eyes widened. "Offensive against the with what?" "With spite, with desperation, with everything that makes us human." Back on 442b, Ambassador had not returned to Earth. Instead, she had traveled to neutral space, meeting with representatives of other species. A race of small furry beings who traded information. The amphibians who had lost there to the centuries ago. The silicates, silicon-based creatures who rarely spoke to anyone. "You want us to help you fight the Dominion," the representative said. "This is suicide." Smiled. "We are already committing suicide. We are asking you to hand us the weapons." "Why should we? You will lose. Everyone loses against the..." Leaned forward. "Have you been watching the war?" The ears twitched. "We have." "Then you have seen something that has never happened before. They are losing ships. They are losing soldiers. They are afraid." She paused to let that sink in. "We may not win, but we are hurting them. And if we hurt them enough, perhaps the next species they attack will have a chance." The representatives exchanged glances. They spoke first, their voice bubbling through a translator. "We lost our world to the... They killed billions of our people. If there is any chance of revenge, we will take it." The silicates simply nodded, a gesture they had learned from humans. They sighed. "Very well, we will provide intelligence. Ship movements, patrol schedules, weaknesses in their defenses. But we do this in secret. If the Dominion discovers our involvement, they will destroy us." Understood, stood and bowed to each representative. Thank you, humanity will not forget this. As she left the meeting, she allowed herself a moment of hope. It was a small flame, easily extinguished, but it was there. On 442B, Corporal O finished another letter to his mother. His hands were burned from a recent explosion. 2 of his friends had died yesterday, but he kept writing. Dear Mother, he wrote, today we ambushed another patrol. They are starting to hesitate before entering certain areas. They are afraid of us. Can you imagine? These ancient beings who conquered the galaxy are afraid of farmers and teachers and students with homemade bombs. I do not know if we will win, but I know they will never forget us. He folded the letter carefully and added it to the stack he could not send. Outside, the sun set over burning fields. Somewhere in the distance, an explosion echoed through the ruins. The war continued, and humanity refused to die. The human fleet gathered in the darkness behind Neptune. 73 ships, all that remained of humanity's navy. Some were military vessels from months of fighting. Others were converted cargo ships, mining platforms, even passenger liners with weapons bolted to their hulls. It was not an impressive fleet. It was a desperate one. Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of the UNSC Resolute, studying the tactical display. She was 52 years old, her hair gray at the temples, her face lined with worry. She had commanded ships for 30 years. She had never commanded a suicide mission before. All ships report ready, her aide announced. Nodded, she opened a communication channel to every vessel in the fleet, and to every colony, every station, every human being who could receive her signal. This is Fleet Admiral. In 3 hours we will jump to the home system. Many of us will not return. Perhaps none of us will. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. They think they understand us. They think we are weak because we are young. They think we are cowards because we tried peace first. They think we will surrender because the numbers say we cannot win. Her voice hardened. They are wrong. We are the species that crawled out of caves and tamed fire. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We are the species that looked at the impossible and said no. On ships throughout the fleet, crews stopped their work to listen. On Earth, families gathered around screens. On occupied 442B, resistance fighters huddled around hidden radios. Today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is, not because we want glory, not because we expect victory, but because our children deserve to know that when the darkness came, we did not run. We fought, with everything we had, until the very end. She straightened her uniform. All ships prepare to jump. May whatever gods you believe in watch over you. Out. The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving only empty space behind. On a tiny stealth ship hidden among the larger vessels, Private First Class ran her final checks. Her craft was called the Silent Wind. It was barely larger than a shuttle, designed to be invisible to sensors. Inside its cargo bay sat a single weapon, a device that had taken humanity's best scientists 10 years to build. Was 24 years old. She had joined the military to pay for university. She had wanted to be an engineer, to build things that helped people. Instead, she was about to destroy a world. Her communication screen flickered and Captain Park appeared. He looked tired, his uniform stained, a bandage covering part of his face. The Defiance flew nearby, its hull covered in patches and repairs. "Private," he said, "you understand your mission." "Yes, Captain. While the fleet engages the defenses, I slip through to Prime. I deploy the device at the planet's core. The crystalline structure will destabilize. And you understand that you will not escape." Was quiet for a moment. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the soul collapse by carrying her children through burning streets. She thought about her mother, who had rebuilt their family home stone by stone. She thought about every ancestor who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. I understand, Captain. Park looked at her for a long moment. Your grandmother would be proud. I know, smiled. I will see you on the other side, Captain, whatever side that is. The screen went dark. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the home system. Alarms immediately screamed as enemy ships detected them. They had over 500 warships defending there. The crystal world of Prime hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and terrible. All ships attack formation, Admiral commanded. Make them look at us, make them focus on us. Give the silent wind time. The battle was chaos from the first moment. Human ships charged toward the fleet, firing everything they had. They responded with overwhelming force, their weapons tearing through human vessels like paper. But the humans did not break. When ships were damaged, they kept fighting. When ships were dying, they rammed enemy vessels. When crews were killed, survivors took their places. Captain Park led the Defiance into the heart of the enemy formation. His ship was burning, half its weapons gone, but he kept pushing forward. Target their flagship, he ordered, everything we have left. Captain, we do not have enough power for a full barrage, Lieutenant reported. Then we get closer. The Defiance accelerated toward the Eternal Radiance, High Archon's personal vessel. Weapons pounded the human ship, but it would not stop. On the Eternal Radiance, watched in disbelief. Why do they not retreat? They are destroyed, they must know this. His second officer had no answer. None of them did. Through the battle unseen, the silent wind slipped toward Prime. Flew her tiny ship through gaps in the fighting, past distracted defenders, down through the crystal world's atmosphere. The planet was beautiful up close, all shimmering towers and geometric patterns. It had stood for 1,000,000 years, home to a civilization that believed itself eternal. She found the insertion point her scientists had identified, a deep crack in the planet's crust that led to the core. She guided her ship down into darkness. At the center of the world, she activated the device. Her final transmission went to every human ship, every human colony, every corner of human space. This is private. My grandmother survived the soul collapse. My mother rebuilt our home with her bare hands. I am their daughter, and I am humanity's answer. Her voice cracked but did not break. Tell them we do not kneel. Tell them we do not surrender. Tell them that when they came for our worlds, we came for theirs. She pressed the final button. Tell them humanity remembers. The device activated. The crystal core of Prime shuddered. Cracks began spreading through the planet's structure, slowly at first, then faster. The world would not shatter today, but it was dying, its perfect structure fatally damaged. Within a decade, it would be uninhabitable. The was doomed. High Archon felt it through his crystal body, a wrongness spreading through his entire being. He stared at the screen showing his world, watched the cracks spreading across its surface. No, he whispered, this is not possible. We have existed for 1,000,000 years. We cannot end. But humanity had shown him something new, something his ancient species had forgotten in their long years of dominance. Everything ends. On the burning bridge of the Defiance, Captain Park watched the fleet fall into chaos as the news spread. There was dying. Their eternal civilization was broken. Sir, Lieutenant said softly, private signal is gone. Park closed his eyes for a moment. She will not be forgotten. None of them will. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Park. We have done the impossible. Now let us finish it. The battered human fleet surged forward, and for the first time in 12,000 years, began to retreat. 1 year after the ceasefire, the Galactic Assembly gathered on neutral ground. Representatives from 100 species filled the Great Hall, their forms ranging from crystalline to gaseous to things that had no human name. They had come to witness something unprecedented. The Dominion was surrendering. High Archon stood before the assembly, his crystalline body dimmer than before, cracks visible in his ancient form. Behind him, holograms showed Prime, its surface now covered in spreading fractures, its cities evacuated, its million-year history coming to an end. "We accept humanity's terms," he said. His voice was quiet, broken. "We withdraw from all human territory. We release all prisoners. We pay reparations for damages caused. We submit to galactic oversight of our military." The assembly was silent. No one had ever heard such words from a ambassador rose to respond. She wore a simple black dress, mourning colors for the millions who had died. Her face showed no triumph, only exhaustion and sorrow. "They asked us once if we understood war," she began. "They believed we did not. They believed that because we were young, because we tried peace first, because we hoped for something better, we were weak." She looked around the assembly, meeting the eyes of species who had watched humanity's struggle with fear and fascination. "They were wrong about us, but perhaps we should explain ourselves so no one makes the same mistake again." She pressed a control and images filled the hall. Human history unfiltered, soldiers dying in muddy trenches, cities burning under nuclear fire, children starving in famines caused by war, mass graves, concentration camps, weapons designed solely to cause suffering. Some representatives looked away, others watched in horror. The delegation stood frozen. "This is what we are," continued. "We evolved fighting. We survived by being cruel. Our history is written in blood and fire because we had no other choice. We did not choose to be warriors. We were forged into them by a universe that wanted us dead." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "But that is not all we are." The images changed. Humans rebuilding after disasters, strangers helping strangers, art and music and love, a mother holding her child, enemies becoming friends, cities rising from ashes. We also learned mercy. We learned forgiveness. We learned that the only way to truly win is to stop fighting eventually. They taught us war means destroying your enemy completely. Our own history taught us that destroying enemies only creates new ones. She looked directly at High Archon. "That is why, despite everything your people did to us, we will not destroy you. We will not take revenge. We will not make you suffer as you made us suffer." Stared at her, confusion clear in his ancient features. "Why? We killed millions of your people. We destroyed your worlds. We tried to exterminate your species. Why would you show mercy?" Smiled, and it was the saddest smile anyone had ever seen. "Because we know what it feels like to face extinction. We lived with that fear for 1,000,000 years on a planet that tried to kill us constantly. We will not inflict that on anyone else, not even you." The assembly erupted in murmurs. This was not how wars ended. Victors took revenge. Victors crushed the defeated. Victors did not offer mercy. But humanity had never done anything the expected way. In a hospital on Earth, Admiral Shin lay dying. The old woman had held on long enough to see the victory, but her body was failing. Captain Park sat beside her bed, holding her wrinkled hand. "We won," he said softly. Smiled weakly. "Did we? I wonder sometimes what winning means." "It means our children will live." "Yes, that is enough." She squeezed his hand with what little strength remained. "Do not let them forget, Park. Do not let them forget what we sacrificed. But do not let them become what we had to become either. Find a balance." "I will try." "That is all any of us can do." Her eyes closed. "I am tired. I think I will rest now." She did not wake up. On the new colony world of Haven, refugees were arriving. Their crystal bodies were damaged, their spirits broken. They had lost everything there, their empire, their pride. They expected hatred from the humans who had defeated them. Instead, they found Dr. Han waiting for them. The former resistance leader looked older now, her hair gray, scars visible on her hands and face. But her eyes were kind as she greeted the first family to step off the transport ship. "Welcome to Haven," she said. "This world is yours now. We will help you build a new home." A young, barely more than a child, looked up at her with confusion. "Why are you helping us? Your people fought us. You killed our soldiers." Knelt down to meet the child's eyes. "Yes, we did, because we had to, because your leaders gave us no choice, but that is over now, and if we let the hatred continue, it will never end. Your children will hate our children. Their children will hate the next generation. Forever." She touched the young's crystalline face gently. "We are choosing to break that cycle. It is harder than fighting. It hurts more than war. But it is the only way any of us will ever truly be free." The young did not fully understand, but something in the human's eyes made sense to a part of them that had no words. In the capital city of Earth, a monument was being built. It listed the names of every human who had died in the war, from Admiral Shin to Private to Corporal O and millions of others. But it also included something else, a message for the future. Sergeant read the words carved in stone, then turned away. He was going home, back to Korea, back to the rice fields his family had farmed for generations. His war was over. His hands, which had killed so many, would now grow food. "What does it say?" his daughter asked. She was 5 years old, too young to remember the war. Picked her up and held her close. "It says that we were strong when we needed to be, and kind when we could be, and that is what humanity means." Years later, a galactic historian would write about the war. They would describe how a young species had faced an ancient empire and won. They would analyze the battles, the tactics, the sacrifices. But they would always end with the same conclusion. The thought they understood war. They had fought for 12,000 years. They had conquered 100 species. They believed themselves masters of conflict, but humanity taught them something new. War is not just destruction. War is not just victory. War is what happens when everything else fails. And the true measure of a species is not how they fight, but how they stop fighting, how they rebuild, how they forgive. They changed the galaxy's definition of war through conquest. Humanity changed it again through mercy. And that is why, long after the battles were forgotten, the galaxy remembered what humans taught them. Strength without kindness is cruelty. Victory without mercy is just another defeat. And the truest warriors are the ones who know when to put down their weapons. On Haven, human and children played together in fields of alien flowers. They did not know about the war. They did not know about the hatred. They only knew that they were friends. Dr. Han watched them from a distance, tears in her eyes. This was what winning looked like. Not ships burning in space, not worlds cracked and dying, not revenge satisfied and enemies crushed. Just children playing, just life continuing. Just hope, small and fragile, growing in the ashes of war. The galaxy had learned a new definition of war. Humanity had taught them what came after.